Thank you guys for coming. My name is Ryan, this is Daniel, Leo, and Mike. We are all psychology majors, and Mike is a business major. And we're doing this project for our psychology of sleep class. It's an outreach project, and we wanted to make it kind of relevant to what you guys are doing to college. We're all transfer students. This is our first semester at Berkeley. We're hoping to give you some tips on how to make best of your final situation. And thank you, Adina, so much for helping us out, set this up. Really make huge difference. Yeah. This is our professor, Matthew Walker. He is a huge name in the sleep field of psychology and science and all this. A lot of the stuff that you see here is presented or was conducted by him himself or his colleagues in the field. Most of it's cutting edge. It's pretty brand new. And Jared Salatin is our graduate student instructor. He is a PhD candidate right now, I think in his last year. And so I want to ask you some questions before we start. How much sleep you guys basically get. So during the week, raise your hand if this applies to you. During the week, you get about 10 or more hours of sleep each night. During like a whole week, during the academic week, on average.
Are we talking about together or
each night? Each night.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay,
yeah. Okay. About 9 or more hours of sleep each night during academic week. 8 or more. That's good. There you go. One person.
Most businesses ever.
7 or more?
7.
6 or more? Okay. 5? You're at 5. Okay. Wow. Okay. So according to our professor, 9 hours of sleep is recommended each night for college students. Yeah. And you guys are going to see why it's important in a second.
Wait, why is it not 8? I thought it was 8.
That's the misconception. It's actually 9 hours.
It's like 9 hours. Yeah, it's like 24, 25.
My dad showed me on that. Never let me go to 9. Seriously.
Regularity and predictability in your sleep is actually good for you, so we'll teach you about that. This study is called it measures attentional lapses. This is what happens as a consequence of sleep deprivation. And they use this tool called the psychomotor vigilance task. It's like a little Game Boy device, and it has some lights that light up every couple of seconds. You're supposed to click a button every time this light comes on, and it measures your attention while you're doing this task. And it gets really tedious and really boring. So if you're really tired, this is going to greatly affect how you do. So the x-axis, you can see days of sleep deprivation, and on the left-hand side, the y-axis, you can see the attentional lapses. And there were several groups. There's a total sleep deprivation in red, 4 hours a night of sleep in yellow, and so on. And you can see with the total sleep deprivation, 1 night of total sleep deprivation, they had really, really bad attention lapses. And the people who were in the other groups, you can see, say, in this group who gets 4 hours of sleep a night, after about 4 nights, they were just as bad on this task as the first group, who had a total amount of sleep deprivation. And then you have the other group, which is 6 hours a night, which is pretty common. Some of us are getting, as you guys just saw. After about 11 nights, they were doing just as poorly as the people who were getting 1 night of total sleep deprivation. And that's not even the most shocking part. This is the explain. This is another study that did basically the same thing. They just manipulated the amount of sleep that the people were getting. As you can see, it goes 3, 5, 7, and 9 in this study. And these were the subjective responses by the people who were in the study. They were reporting how they felt after these nights of sleep. And what was really interesting is that the two groups, the 7 hour of sleep, so the deprivation group versus the control group who was getting 9 hours of sleep, the regular amount, they both reported the same amount of subjective sleepiness. They both said that they felt totally fine. And we saw in the previous study that the actual physical measures of how they were doing was actually much worse. So we can't really tell how bad we were doing, and maybe our potential isn't as great as it could be if we were getting enough sleep. And this is the next part. Leo is going to discuss.
Okay, so now we'll be addressing sleep for memory consolidation. But before I talk about memory consolidation, this is just kind of a general overview of the different types of memories, the memory stages, and the brain states. Essentially, a quick breakdown. There's wakefulness and 2 stages of sleep, which is REM, stands for rapid eye movement, and non-REM, there's 4 stages. And then there's several different types of memories. essentially two types, declarative and non-declarative, but there's subdivisions within those two types of memories. And there's different memory stages that go in order of time. So you first encode the memory, then consolidate the memory, you associate and integrate the memory, and then you are able to recall and reconsolidate and eventually erase it if you don't use the memory. So this diagram right here is just to give you a visualization of how there's really interconnectivity between all the different brain states and the memory types. So the main takeaway message from this is that sleep absolutely will help you with memory. So now to address what memory consolidation is, it's just a time-dependent process that involves the stabilization of learned information. So as I just mentioned earlier, this is the memory stage. With encoding, that's when you learn a memory or learn information. For example, when you're in class, the professor teaches you the material, and that's when you're encoding the material. And then when you review it, go home, go to sleep, you consolidate. And then later on, for example, the next day or the following week when you have lecture again, that's when you could recall the memory based on first encoding it. This is just a time-dependent process, and it just goes from encoding essentially over here to recall, as you can tell at the time. So we're going to be addressing the non-declarative memory first. First is procedural memory, which is essentially like the know-how memory. It involves action and behavior. It doesn't involve a lot of thought. It's very kind of just like it involves physical actions, habits and skills that you do frequently that you don't really think about. It doesn't really take a lot of cognitive input from your part. You just kind of do things. So it's essentially muscle memory. As you can tell, like playing an instrument like the piano, eventually after you learn, you just perform the activity without thinking about it. That's also the same with sports. Once you know how to play a sport, once you have that in your memory, you don't need to learn how to, replay the sport after you've learned. It's the same concept with learning how to ride a bicycle. And this is just a quick example of the motor procedural skills. This is the finger tapping test. Essentially, in this study, you just have a participant sit down in front of like a little keypad, like the one shown there on the left, and you just perform continually 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 for 30 seconds for 12 trials, and then you receive 30-second intervals of rest, and then after that you perform the actual test. And it just shows the different two experimental conditions, where the first one on the left-hand side, you wait, you're awake, you learn the information, and then you have a period of just going about your day, and then you get tested again, and then you receive sleep. Let me see, can I use the mouse? Yeah, so you receive sleep, and then you get tested on the following day. And it's essentially a very similar condition where first year you learn the information, you perform the task, you sleep, you perform the task again, and then you have a period of wakefulness, and then you perform the task at night. And the graph just shows that regardless of the two experimental conditions, it just shows that sleep will absolutely benefit your procedural motor skills. So you can tell right here, there's a great increase for both of them. But this is the one that's more, I guess, pertinent to like finals and us studying right now. This is visual procedural skills, and in this study, you have essentially you're sitting in front of a monitor, and you have different patterns of lines, and this little, you're supposed to focus on this point, and then very frequently the pattern will break, where you could either have a vertical break or a horizontal break, as such right here. and you're supposed to determine when those breaks happen and report those. And essentially, it's an identical condition as the study I previously told you, where you learn the skill, then you get tested, and you sleep, and then you get tested the following day. So so it just goes to show that after performing this task for multiple times, you'll have your accuracy will decrease, your response time will decrease, because you essentially get to a perceptual overload where your brain is just kind of, it's flooded with kind of with stimulus, so you're not able to perform as accurate and as frequently as, just for example, like you at the beginning of the task. So it just shows that after sleeping, you actually recover some of this, or get rid of the perceptual overload. And during the first night of sleep, it's like absolutely critical for you to improve in this type of learning, in this type of memory, in order for you to consolidate it as well. So once again, like, sleep is absolutely critical, and this could relate to, for example, while like you're reading your textbook or something like that, you're studying. If you have perceptual overload where you've been doing it, like, you know, you have a big study session and you have a lack of sleep, it'll potentially impair your ability to focus on it and be attentive and be able to, like, really comprehend the material. Because if you have perceptual overload, that's when, for example, I don't know if this has happened to you, when you're reading your textbook or something, and then eventually you're just like, you just can't even focus. Like, you're looking at the page where you're reading a word, but then you're like, wait, what was I reading? Because you can't, you don't have the ability to, like, really focus on a particular point.
So one of the interesting things that I thought was naps will actually help you recover your perceptual overload. So a short nap here is considered 30 minutes, and a long nap is considered 60 minutes. So if you see the people with green dots that go all the way up, you see that the longer they take this test, they never get better. Right? They had 4 increments. They had to turn the test 4 times throughout the day. You gradually get worse, right? Just because, I mean, it's hard to focus, you get kind of tired. But even with a 30-minute nap, people start increasing after that nap. They start getting more accurate, right? And then with the 60-minute nap, they even get better. They almost get down to like when they had just woke up. So that's what's really cool to me, was that a 30 to 60-minute nap, like in between studying, can actually help reverse the perceptual overload that you get. So it's really critical. Like, now I take naps between my study sessions, just because just seeing this was really interesting to me.
Okay, so now we'll talk about a different type of memory, which is declarative memory. This is definitely way more pertinent to, I guess, right now preparing for finals. And essentially it involves memory that is consciously recalled, and it's like fact-based memory that relates to events and experiences that you've had. It's also called explicit memory, and the reason why it's also called that is because it involves information that can be explicitly stored and recalled in the future. So it's subdivided into episodic memory and semantic memory. Episodic memory involves more like events and experiences that you have. So for example, like you going out with your friends, having a nice time, going out to dinner or something like that. That would be more of an episode that you can recall, but semantic memories we'll be mainly focusing on, which is mainly generalized fact-based information. It doesn't necessarily have a day or timestamp, so that's just like, learning information. And for example, if you're taking a math course, and you learn the equations, you know how to perform the equation and obtain the correct answer.